Pedro, thank you so much for joining me again today, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you, Ben. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're getting closer, man. We're so close. All right, so let's talk some AL Central. Pedro, when you look at this division, let's talk about some storylines, some top things that you're looking at this year in the American League Central.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot. This division is going to introduce potentially several future stars this season. I think, or at least a couple, at least a couple, and that's going to be fun to
Yeah.
watch. But if I'm going to tick down the list of like maybe the stuff that's going to catch most of my attention this season, I think number one is the White Sox, and specifically their lineup, and how dangerous it can be, how healthy it'll be. This is a group that last year, when its individual members were on the field, they generally were among the best in baseball. They just didn't stay on the field very much. That team was still significantly better than its peers in the division, even without health. But if they are healthy, I think they're a real threat. Luis Robert, I know you're a big fan of his, Ben, and if he can string together 140, 150 game plus season, you're talking about an actual superstar. A top of the line player. Eloy Jimenez, can he be healthy? Across the board, even Yasmani Grandal, their catcher, a veteran, but he was really good when on the field last year. And if this is a group that 1 through 9 stays on the field, that's we might be looking at the best offense team in the American League.
Pedro, I have a thought, an opinion that I want to bounce off of you, and it's regarding the White Sox lineup and a player you mentioned. So I want to ask, am I crazy here for thinking that Luis Robert is a potential future MVP? I think he's a perennial. I think he's going to be a perennial MVP candidate for years to come.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would go that far. The latter thing you said, the first thing, absolutely. I think that's within his potential without doubt. I think the issue is he's displayed some injury risk, and he is to
True.
be a perennial MVP candidate, you need to stay on the field. And I think I need to see this year, and I need to see how he looks through his mid-20s before I proclaim that. But do I think that's within reach for once or twice in his career at this point? Absolutely. I mean, he was one of the best players in baseball when he was on the field last year. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that. If you said could he win the AL MVP this year, I would say yes. Yes, I do think so.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
That's a good point. I'm a big positivity guy. I like to refuse to even believe that injuries are in the question, but realistically, you're absolutely right. Okay, White Sox offense there. What do you got for me? What's another storyline we should be on the lookout for?
Shane Bieber. I mean, you want to be optimistic, man. Here's one for you that this requires optimism, right? This is a guy who, when he was pitching last year, was the best in baseball, I think, and or the second best in baseball because Jacob deGrom exists. But after that, I mean, this guy was absolutely dominant, and but had a shoulder injury and is purportedly healthy. Has been pitching in spring training, and he like the Guardians' success is absolutely dependent on him. They've not invested much in their roster. They do have him. They have Jose Ramirez, obviously, but if they are to go anywhere near the playoffs, it's going to be because Shane Bieber throws 220 dominant innings. And if he does that, he's the Cy Young. I mean, he's my Cy Young expectation right now. I think it's it's a little optimistic based on his injury history, but it's within reach because this is a guy that strikes out 14 per nine, he's a really really hard to hit pitcher, and it's impressive to watch him when he's healthy and on his game.
Pedro, is there any chance here? Let's say Shane Bieber is at the top of his game and Jose Ramirez is at the top of his game and doesn't get traded, gets extended, best case scenario. Can the Guardians be any good?
I mean, if optimism runs the day, I'll go 80
It does.
something best case. So that's
Okay.
is there a world in which the Guardians make the 2022 12-team playoff field? Yes. Yes. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to, get into how likely it is. I'll just say yes. There's a chance. Yes.
I love it. I love the positivity. Okay. One more storyline. Hit me.
How about the Twins and then what their plan is for the season? Last year they were obviously considered a competitor of the White Sox. Did not finish the season that way whatsoever, but they've reinvested in the roster. I think there's a lot of people around the game who are very interested in what they've constructed in their lineup specifically. I'm a little concerned about the rotation. I think there's a lot of they're placing a lot of hope on some unproven fellas in there, and there's the potential to be good, but there's also an uncertainty. And in order for them to survive the 6 month slog of this season, in order for them to contend with the White Sox, who have proven starters across their rotation, even though one of them, Lance Lynn, is hurt right now, the Twins are going to need some of their young starting pitching to be good, to be better than the industry expects. Joe Ryan, their opening day starter, is vastly inexperienced, but people believe in him. So we'll see. I think it's very interesting to invest, in the number one free agent on the market at a position, and then not invest much in your rotation, and to see, it's a counterintuitive approach, you could say. And so I think it's I'm very interested to see how that plays out over the 6 month season.
Absolutely, me as well. Okay, so this division is a little more exciting than it has been in years past. And there's getting to be some big names, some exciting players just outside of the White Sox. So what I want to ask you now is, when it comes to the AL Central this year, who are some top players that you are most excited to watch that people should also be excited to watch?
Yeah, so the first one I've written down, I feel like is now overkill. So it's Luis Robert, which we've discussed. So he's up there. Gotten sufficient publicity here. Let's go Spencer Torkelson. I mean,
yes.
I think it's great. I think it's great when when a team promotes a player to their opening day roster to begin the season. Service time. Not the preeminent part of their decision. That's great. And Spencer Torkelson can hit. He's hit at every level he's been at. Certainly since college, I believe since high school, very likely since any age he played before that. This is a absolutely dominant hitter at almost every level he's played at. And since he's at ASU, a lot of us have had our eyes on him. And what does that translate to the major league level? And now we're going to get to see it. And Miguel Cabrera has handed him first base, and this is the passing of a torch, which is nice to see in baseball, and we don't usually see it at the start of the season. It usually happens sometime in May or June, and it's pretty cool that on opening day we're going to be able to see this fella who we knew for a long time could hit, hitting a major league pitching.
Pedro, I am so glad you put him in this conversation. As you know, I will always root for Detroit. It's the organization that gave me a chance for so many years. So I've been following Tork in his career since the day he was drafted. Even before then, I've been talking about him for a year. I am glad you believe in him as much as I believe in him. And I am so glad that the Tigers put him on the opening day roster. People should be pumped up to watch this guy. He is going to be very good for a very long time, in my opinion. So I'm glad you agree. Who's your next player?
Let's go Carlos Correa. I mean, he chose the Central. None of us would have expected, if we had done this a month ago, the likelihood that we would have talked about him in this division would have been, I think, if we could have picked the other five to discuss him before we would discuss this one. And so I think it's crazy that he picked the Twins, I especially on the contract that he did. Crazy in the sense that none of us expected it. It makes perfect sense for him in the sense that he gets to get paid at a commensurate level for short term and with some insurance behind that. So, but can he carry this team that has flaws to postseason contention? I think he's sort of, not entirely, but he's somewhat staking his reputation as a playoff leader on whether he can make some magic out of this. And I think, the way the Twins have handled his arrival there, but, with their behind the scenes cameras, introducing him to the team and whatnot, this is a guy who's really going in there as if he is the new leader and the for lack of a better word, savior of this roster, this organization. And I think that's an interesting case. And, obviously, if he plays like he did last year, they have a pretty good chance at making the playoffs. He hasn't always been that hitter, but he's still at an age where he can absolutely remain in his prime. And he was fantastic a year ago. So I'm curious to see what he is and what that means for Minnesota.
If we had had this conversation a month ago and you would have told me that Carlos Correa is going to be on your list of players to watch in the AL Central, I would have called you crazy, Pedro. But here we are. Yeah. He is a member of the Minnesota Twins. They are going to rake, and they are going to give up some runs. So if anything, a team that'll at least be exciting to watch. Okay, exciting to watch leads me to this question. For people that are listening that might not be the most diehard baseball fan in the world, there's a lot of new names coming to the AL Central this year. Give me a few names that people need to know this year in the American League Central, whether it be a rookie or just an under-the-radar player that you think might take off this year.
Yeah, so this guy, the first one I'm going to mention, he's not under the radar, right? But he is a rookie, so I hope this counts. Bobby Witt Jr. He's certainly not under the radar.
Counts.
About as on the radar as any rookie could ever be. Right? A spring ago, he was, there were real talks for him to make the Major League Opening Day roster, I believe, as a teenager. This guy has he has the baseball pedigree. The son of a former major leaguer, has hit at every level. Was a high draft pick out of Texas high school, and is proving to be ready in spring training again this year in surprise at the Royals spring training. And they're going to entrust a position to him. It certainly seems like, and it's hard to quibble with that. I mean, this guy has hit. He is, his body is major league ready. He's strong. He's an incredible young man for the position. And I think I said he's not under the radar, but if you think he's not under the radar now, let's wait to see in 2 months or 3 months, and where he is. So I think if you don't know that name yet, which I'm guessing if you're listening to this, you probably do, but if you don't, you'll know it soon. I promise.
He is the definition of a super prospect. And what's really cool is there's a few of them in the American League this year when it comes to super prospects. So great name there. Who you got next?
Yeah, let's go with another Royals prospect, MJ Melendez, who didn't crack the opening day roster, but specifically because he's a catcher, and the Royals have a catcher who's really good, who's had a late career renaissance in Salvador Perez, who they really have absolutely no desire to remove from that position, given that he's tied into the team long term, and he's raking more than he did in his 20s. And so MJ Melendez is going down to AAA, but he's also expected to get some time in the outfield. Not necessarily as a long-term home for him, but potentially as a way to get his pretty potent bat into their lineup pretty soon. And so if the Royals are going for it here, are making a run at it, and they have a need for another bat, perhaps we could see MJ Melendez, which would be an interesting move. It's always the age-old problem that teams confront. What do you do when one of your best prospects plays one of the positions that your franchise cornerstone plays? Do you trade him? Do you move him? Do you wait? And they look like they might be electing the move for now.
Yep, good point. Okay, one more. Let's go with one more player that people need to know.
I'll stick with the Tigers to go back to the Torkelson and Riley Green. He's not going to be on the opening day roster.
Love it.
Injuries have sapped him of some time in spring, but he is going to be. If the Tigers are making a run for it, which I do expect, I don't know that they're going to win this thing, but I think they're going to be in the mix. And Riley Green's bat is going to be relevant to their chances to do so. And I think they've shown with their Torkelson decision, they've demonstrated that they are ready to push prospects if they think that increases their chances of contending. And that's what's going to be required to promote Green. And I think they will do it. I think they absolutely will do it. This is another guy who's hit at every level, maybe not to the same extent as Torkelson, but plays a little bit more of a defensively demanding position, and absolutely could be, I know scouts who think that this guy's a future all-star. So I think whenever he arrives, he will be fun to watch.
All right, Pedro, I'll slip you that $10 bill for mentioning both Torkelson and Green in this conversation a little bit later. Thank you for joining me to talk some AL Central. Before I let you go, the big question, who wins the American League Central?
Yeah, I think I was kind of tipping my hand to this, but I'll go with the Chicago White Sox still. I think it's going to be a little bit more, I think it's going to be a little bit tighter than some people realize. Some of the projections have the gap as 15-ish games. I don't see it that way. I think it's going to be less than 10, but I still have the Chicago White Sox. They just have, they have the most currently good players at the major league level. And I think I'm going to bet on that for now.
All right, sounds good. Pedro, thank you for joining me, my friend. Make sure you follow Pedro's work, Pedro Moura, on social media. Good stuff, good writing for us as well. Thanks again, my friend.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Thanks for watching. If you love flipping bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.